Thrones, more than one. Ancient of Days sits on one throne. He appears with a head of hair that is white like wool and wearing a robe. And he appears sitting on one throne. Then who sits on the other throne? His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated. See, I knew. And the books were open. Now, who sits on the other throne? Because he saw thrones. Here you go. Figure number 2. In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man. Now, let's parse the language. One like a son of man. He didn't say, I saw one who is the son of man. Why? Like a son of man means he looked human. He had a human appearance. The reason why Daniel says one like a son of man is to affirm the fact that though he appears human, he's not merely human. He is more than human. So appears human, he appears as a man, but he's not merely man. He is God appearing as a man. Okay, let's prove it. One like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days. Count. Ancient of Days, wearing a white robe, white clothing, with white hair on his head, white like wool, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, white hair on his head, seated on a throne. Another figure comes to the Ancient of Days. So they're not the same. Now I see why thrones, plural, not throne, singular. Thrones, plural, not thrones, singular, because Daniel shocks the Jews of today in seeing a vision of two distinct divine figures, persons, not gods, because Daniel's a monotheist, there's only one God. Before Christ became born of the Virgin, before the New Testament, one like a son of man coming to the clouds of heaven, he approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power, meaning he was given kingdom. That's why there's another throne, because he's going to come and take that other throne and sit enthroned with the Ancient of Days. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. Ipelechun, from Pilach, Aramaic, Palacha, Plichle. Notice, he's not just for the Jews, Muslims. How long does he rule over all nations? His dominion is everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Right? Never be destroyed. Now, 27 is interesting, because notice what's said about the Son of Man. The Son of Man, right? His kingdom is eternal, right? And every nation in all languages worship him. Look what it says about the Most High. Verse 27. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the kingdom of heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. Here you have Daniel prophesying, not only do the Father and the Son, Ancient of Days and Son of Man, rule, but we who believe in them, trust in them, and endure even unto death, we will be rewarded to rule with them and inherit their kingdom forever and ever. That's exactly what Revelation teaches, doesn't it? Right? Isn't that the teaching of Revelation? We are a kingdom of priests who will serve Father and Son and the power of the Holy Spirit forever and rule over the earth under their headship. Daniel saw that before Revelation. So it'll be handed over to the people of the Most High. Now notice, his kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, just like the Son of Man. His dominion is the lasting dominion, and all rulers will worship and obey him, just like they will worship the Son of Man. But guys, guess what's amazing? Did you know that the Aramaic word Most High is plural? El Yonin. Literally, it is the Most Highs, the highest ones. It's not singular. Do you know that? Now, why do you think it's plural? That the holy people of the highest ones. Why plural? Because Daniel saw two. One like the Son of Man and the Ancient of Days. Two, and they both rule together forever, and they'll both be worshipped forever by all nations. That's why it's plural. But do you understand the implication of Daniel? The implication of Daniel is what? There are two eternal divine persons. Ancient of Days, Son of Man. They're not the same. That's why Son of Man can go to the Ancient of Days. And they both appear visibly because one of them becomes human, the Son of Man, because New Testament tells us this one is the one who becomes Jesus, and he did become a man. He did take on a physical body and add an extra nature, human nature, but the Father never became man, so he can appear in visible form as a man without becoming man. See the difference? See the difference? Right? But you want me to show you the Holy Spirit in Daniel? So that there's three and three alone? That the pagans knew it was the Spirit of the Holy God that was given Daniel wisdom, knowledge, understanding. That even the pagans, right, realized was beyond their capacity and even beyond the ability of their own gods as a testimony that Daniel's God is a true God. Here. Daniel 5, Belshazzar and the pagans were engaging in drunken revelry, orgies. And all of a sudden, they saw a visible hand writing on the wall, Minni, Minni, Tekel Parson. And they were freaked out. But none of the magicians, sorcerers, Chaldeans could interpret it because their gods were powerless. So then they told them about Daniel. And look what they say about Daniel. Now, the New King James captures it perfectly because I'm going to go into the translation issue in a minute. Here's your Trinity, people. Daniel 5, 11, and 14. There's a man in your kingdom whom was the Spirit of the Holy God. See, even the pagans saw the power of Daniel's God, the power of the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's why they were placed there. They were placed in the palace so they would be a witness to Nebuchadnezzar and the others that the God of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the true God and wants them to turn and be saved. In other words, God was placing them there because God even wanted the Babylonian court to be saved because God loves all human creatures, even the kings of Babylon. You understand? Why do you think they were there? Why do you think God was doing miracles through them and them alone and confounding the gods of Nebuchadnezzar, Nabonidus, and Belshazzar? As a witness to them. I am the true God. Your gods are nothing but demons under my feet. And I created you, and I'm the one exalting you, and I want to save you. I don't want to destroy you because I love you too. You understand? You understand the message? So here, there's a man in your kingdom whom is the Spirit of the Holy God. That's why he has wisdom and knowledge that rivals the gods. And we can't keep up with that knowledge. And in the days of your father, light, understanding, wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, meaning your royal predecessor, your father, the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, because none of them could match him. Again, then he goes himself, Belshazzar, and says to Daniel, Daniel 5:14, right here, I have heard of you, that the Spirit of God is in you, and that light, understanding, and wisdom are found in you because of that Spirit. You're telling me the Bible is not Trinitarian? You can't even escape the Trinity in the Old Testament. What are you guys talking about? What are you guys talking about, man? Now, the quotations. This is why I got these commentaries. See how solid they are and how far adrift they become. So now I quote this commentary. So let me go back. Watch here. I'm quoting now this book. Right here. Pages 378, 380. Right here. Why do I quote those parts I agree with? Because I'm not dependent on them. I'm only quoting them as what they call, right, a valid appeal to authority, to scholarship, in order to show this is not a view I've invented. You understand why we're doing this? I'm appealing to those recognized as experts in the field to show I did not invent this. That's it. Because I'm not considered an authority and a scholar. This is how academia works. You ready? So let me quote what she says right here. Pages 373 to 8. Wendy Witter, Daniel, Discourse Analysis of the Hebrew Bible. I guess it's volume, what is it? 23, I believe it is. Whatever it is. Right? Zondervan, Exegetical Commentary on the Old Testament. Daniel L. Block, General Editor. Pages 378, 380. Emphasis mine. All right. She will give you the historical, cultural background of Daniel 7 to show you that in light of its historical context, no one reading Daniel would deny that Daniel is describing two distinct divine figures. Understand? If you read Daniel 7 in light of its historical backdrop, in light of ancient Near Eastern beliefs, no one reading Daniel 7 would fail to say Daniel just presented two distinct divine figures. The imagery of clouds, that the Son of Man rides the clouds, in this scene is significant. Why? She's going to state something I have shared plenty of times when I've done sessions on Daniel 7 and Christ being the Son of Man of Daniel. Watch here. Okay. Watch here. But by far, the most frequent use of clouds, its most frequent, meaning the Hebrew word anan, cloud, its most frequent usage has to do with theophanies, meaning when you see the word anan, cloud, in the Hebrew Bible, most of the occurrences has to do with God riding the cloud, God appearing on a cloud or in a cloud. You understand? Transition? Bibles don't transition, Max. Wait, I'll answer it a little later. All right? But by far, its most frequent association is with theophanies, that is, appearance of God. 58 of the 87 occurrences of anan, that word for cloud, appear in the context of God's presence. The Pentateuch especially speaks of visible manifestations of Yahweh's glory in the cloud atop Sinai and over the tent of meeting. And then she gives you the references. And its presence in the pillar of cloud guides the people through the wilderness. Again, references. Later text about the temple also refer to the cloud. Now, watch what this means. What's the significance that when the Old Testament speaks of a cloud appearing, that is reference to God's presence, God appearing, and the Son of Man riding the clouds? Here's the significance. You ready? But it is not just the presence of clouds in Daniel that is significant. We already know Yahweh, the Ancient of Days, is present in the throne room. Because who's the Ancient of Days? Yahweh. See above on 7, 9, and 10. What is particularly significant about the clouds in Daniel 7, watch the historical, ancient Near Eastern context. Because among the pagans, they too had a belief of a divine council. And among the Canaanites, because we discovered tablets from Ugarit, right? Ugarit, which is where the Canaanites, some Canaanites live. And these tablets gave us a better understanding about what they believed and their practices and customs, right? What is particularly significant about the clouds in Daniel 7 is that someone is coming with them. Those of us outside of Daniel's context may well picture someone floating into the throne room on a billowy heap of clouds, right? Watch here. Okay. But this is probably not what Daniel would have seen. When you tell the ancient Near Eastern people God is appearing with the cloud, it was a chariot cloud where he's coming as a warrior with his arrows or sword, not, the floating lovey-dovey hippie Jesus. And you guys who are from Mesopotamia, you Assyrian, Chaldean, right, Suryoyo, you should know this. we have ancient depictions, what they call relics, of the Assyrian god Ashur, where he's in a chariot with an arrow, right? And you have a lot of Syrians who are now turning their back on Jesus Christ and wanting to go worship the god Ashur, Allah Ashur. That's the imagery. The imagery isn't of a lovey-dovey hippie Jesus floating on the clouds, floating. Fly, 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 fly. The imagery is of a warrior god coming on the chariots with his sword and arrows to slay and to save his people. And I'll show you that image in a minute. So here, to say the Son of Man is coming on the clouds, it's not a hippie, lovey-dovey Jesus like you have these Mormon depictions. I'll show you what it's going to look like. Right? But this is probably not what Daniel would have seen. In Daniel's ancient Eastern context, he would have seen someone riding the clouds like a chariot. The Old Testament speaks of Yahweh riding his cloud chariot through the heavens, and give the references, where the rider imagery is present without specifying the clouds in Psalm 65:4. And the prophets speak of Yahweh riding a cloud in judgment. Now watch the pagans, the Canaanites, from which the Israelites, right, clashed, with whom I should say. In the wider Canaanite world, the storm god Baal was the rider of the clouds. That was one of his names. Right? So, according to the Canaanites, the one who rode the clouds was Baal, the rider of the clouds. And he came with a thunderbolt. He would strike you down with thunder. Because they believe Baal controlled the weather, who controlled thus agricultural fertility. So you'd have to cry out to Baal to bless you with rains so you can have a good crop. And he was armed with a bolt of lightning. He bestowed rain on faithful worshippers. In Ugarit, a 15th century BC city-state on the Syrian coast north of Israel, Baal was the divine hero who had defeated Yam in the sea, God's attempt to become God over the pantheon. What is being said here? Now, let me not lose the point. Wendy Witter saying that the Babylonians who would have heard this proclamation and read it would have immediately associated the one like the Son of Man as Baal, the rider of the clouds, and they would have associated the Ancient of Days with El, the high God, the father of Baal. You understand what they're trying to say? What is being said here is that Daniel is actually showing the pagans it isn't Baal that rides the clouds. And El is not the father of days, because the Canaanites, their high god was named El, one of the names of the true God. He was known to be the father of the gods. He had 70 sons, and also father of years. That was one of his names, father of years. And there are stories of him having a huge male member, because these gods and goddesses were perverts and would have orgies. So El and Baal are like Zeus. They go around sleeping with goddesses and women. So in the context of Daniel, when you talk about the Ancient of Days, for the Canaanites, or even those who had similar beliefs to them, that would have been the high god El. Because notice here, it says, Baal's victory won him kingship among the gods, and he served as vice-regent under his father, the high god El, an aged, wise figure who presided over the world and was attended by a divine council. But what Daniel was saying is, no, your God El, he's not the true God. The true El is Yahweh. And your other God, his son, Baal, he's not the rider of the clouds. The true rider of the clouds is one like the Son of Man. Not only is Daniel affirming that the God of Israel is multi-personal, he's also attacking the gods and goddesses of the pagans, saying, your gods aren't real. It's the God of Israel who is. It's a polemic against their gods. Do you get it or no? So what he's saying is, Baal is not the rider of the clouds. The Son of Man is. El his aged father, because in Canaanite mythology, Il was called the father of gods and the father of years. What is the true God called? Ancient of days. He is not the true God. Baal is not the rider of the clouds. The true God is Yahweh, and the true rider of the clouds is the Son of Man. You understand now? It's not just an affirmation that the God of Israel is multi-personal. It's a polemic. It's an attack against the pagans and their gods. Hey, Babylonians, Marduk is not God. Nebo is not God. Yahweh is. And hey, Baal, he don't ride anything. He's under the feet of the one like the Son of Man, who is Yahweh, the Son of Yahweh, the Father. You understand? So, as Wesley Huff noted, Genesis 1 is not only an accurate depiction of creation, but a polemic. Because if you don't know, let me educate you. The pagans thought their gods were brought into being. They didn't create the heavens and the earth. They were part of creation and came into being. But Genesis says, unlike your gods and goddesses that are part of creation, part of the matter that came from which they came into being, the God of Israel created the heavens and the earth, and he exists when there was no heavens and earth. It's a polemic. So the pagans, reading Daniel, would see this as a polemic. He's saying, not your gods, it's my God. You know who the true Ancient of Days is? Yahweh. You know who the Father of years happens to be? Yahweh. You know who the rider of the cloud is? The Son of Man. Now, with that said, let's continue. Do not miss, right, what is happening in Daniel's vision. Look what the commentator is going to say. There's a fiery scene surrounding Yahweh seated on the throne, and there's a cloud with someone writing on it. So look what she's saying. You got a fiery throne, one seating on it, that's Yahweh. But then you have a cloud and someone writing on it. Well, who is that? Well, watch. In the Old Testament, Yahweh is the one who rides the clouds. Now you see the mystery? Wait, hold on. How do you have Yahweh appearing as the Ancient of Days sitting on a throne, and then you have someone else who's not him riding the cloud, if the Old Testament says it is Yahweh who rides the clouds? See what she's doing? She's unpacking how shocking Daniel 7 is. In this single vision, there are two Yahweh figures. The Ancient of Days on the throne, that's one Yahweh. And the cloud riding Yahweh receiving eternal right to rule. He's the second Yahweh figure. Daniel was seeing two powers in heaven. The one on the throne and vice regent, sharing Yahweh's essence and receiving everlasting dominion power. Wow. See why I quoted her? Okay, watch here. Daniel's vision of the throne room provides a stunning portrayal of the divine council in Israelite theology. And watch the polemic against the pagans, as well as highlighting its most significant difference from other divine councils of the ancient Near East. And the Canaanite divine council, the rider of the clouds, was El's vice regent and received eternal right to rule when he defeated Yam. But Baal was a different god than El. See, they were not the same God. But watch here. In the Israelite divine council, however, the vice regent position was not filled by another God, but by Yahweh himself in another form. Now, what does Mike Heiser mean by another form? Because she's quoting Heiser. This hypostasis of Yahweh was the same essence as Yahweh, but a distinct second person. Damn, Gina. Daniel is affirming that Yahweh God is multi-personal. Wow. Israel's divine council was headed by Yahweh, also called El Elohim, but its vice regent shared the essence of Yahweh. Right? This had profound implications for understanding monotheism according to the Old Testament. Israel's divine council had a second person sharing Yahweh's essence, exactly what was needed to understand Jesus' claim to be one with the Father in the New Testament. Then she goes on to say later on, pages 398, 399, look, why did Jesus like to quote the Son of Man? She gives several reasons. Why was Jesus' favorite self-description the Son of Man? If you read in the Gospels, he uses the Son of Man in reference to himself more than any other title, right? Why? So she gives some possible reasons. Quote, perhaps the second reason the Son of Man was Jesus' favorite title is because it is in Daniel's vision of chapter 7 that we find the clearest Old Testament picture of the divine council, and in it, Jesus' relationship to Yahweh. Probably the truth about him that his listeners had the hardest time grasping and accepting. In Daniel's vision of the Israelite divine council, Yahweh sat at the head of the council, but shared his essence with a second power that was a distinct figure to whom he gave everlasting dominion power. This portrayal of the divine council shows that the Old Testament monotheism had room for a second person. Watch right here. Perhaps sending his listeners back to the vision of Daniel 7 was Jesus' repeated invitation for people to recognize him as that second person, to understand and believe that he was one with the Father. And then she says, go read 378, 380, which we read. We know that at least Jesus' educated audience understood what he was doing in claiming to be the Son of Man. How do we know they understood him? His educated audience who are literate in the Old Testament? We know this because they charge him with blasphemy when he used the title at his trial. Jesus told the Sanhedrin, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. And then she gives the references. A clear reference to Daniel 7:13. And they all heard him claim to share the essence of the Father. Why? Because he's not the Mighty One, but sits at the right hand of the Mighty One. And he had just said he is the Son of God. Right? The one who would ultimately exalt him, the Father exalt the Son of Man, Jesus, and give him everlasting kingdom. It was not a claim they could or would tolerate. They demanded his death. They didn't want to accept this man was that second power. So in her note, she says, any discussion of the nature of the Trinity ventures into a field of heretical landmines. I mean, you got to tread lightly and be careful, lest you espouse heresy. Watch her. Jesus will identify himself as the great I am, which means he too is Yahweh of the Old Testament. That is, Yahweh is not simply God the Father, but all of the Godhead in singular reference. Right? What we can say without falling into heresy is that there is an internal complexity within God that was not altogether apparent in the Old Testament. Jesus can be both distinguished from God and also identified as God. And then her other note, watch here. The language of essence is loaded with later patristic theological value. But for our purposes, it means that the New Testament religious leaders understood Jesus to be claiming a specialized and exclusive relationship with God that put him on a par with him, meaning made him equal to God, God the Father. Jesus was claiming an ontological, ontos, own means being, share in the identity of Israel's God. What this means is Jesus was saying he participates and he's included in the infinite being of Israel's God. See why I wrote this post and quoted her? So that the heretics won't say, Sam, that's your interpretation. You're making stuff up, Sam. You're no scholar. You don't know the Bible, Sam. You're not a scholar. Ha, 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 ha. All right. Now, that said, let's go to Irenaeus. What does he say about Daniel? Now, watch what Irenaeus is going to do with this passage. Now, Nebuchadnezzar throws Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, 3 men, but then he sees a 4th figure who appeared as a man in the fire with them. Again, New King James and King James, Dewey Rames captures the meaning perfectly. Daniel 3, 24, 28. Okay, ready? Okay, watch here. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look, he answered, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Right? Bar Alahin. So the Son of God appeared as a man, and he protected them from being torched by the fire. So they're walking in the fire as if it was a pool. But who is the Son of God that appeared as a man to save the people of God? Watch who he is. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, princes, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. Watch here. Who is the Son of God that appeared as a man that was with them? Now notice the lesson. He was with them in the fire to preserve them by being consumed by the fire. But notice he didn't take them out. What's the lesson? Jesus will be with you in your fiery trials to preserve you from being consumed by your trials. But he didn't take them out. He preserved them in the fire so the fire wouldn't consume them. Lesson. The Lord does not take you away from trials, but he preserves you by his power through the trial so the trial doesn't consume you. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel. Did you catch who the Son of God is? The angel of God. A 4th man who wasn't human by nature but appeared as a man, who had the appearance of the Son of God, was there, and that's the angel of God. You got it? Did the angel of God stop them from being thrown into the fire? No, they're already thrown in the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown in the fire. So what this teaches you is, it's not that God will stop you from going through fiery trials. You'll be thrown in the midst of the fire, but God will preserve you that the fire won't consume you. You'll come out better men and women as a result. And who's there to preserve you? Because he's almighty over your trials? The Son of God, the messenger of the Father, Jesus Christ, who sent his angel, delivered his servants who trusted in him, and they trusted in the king's word, yielded their bodies that they should not serve nor worship any God except their own God. Now, how do I know the fire represents your trials? Here you go, 1 Peter 1:7. We're going to read 8 as well. 1 Peter 1:7-8. That the genuineness of your faith, being more precious than gold, that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen you love. You haven't seen him physically, but you still love and adore him. Though now you do not see him, yet believing you rejoice with joy inexpressible, full of glory. You are elated at Jesus and in love with Jesus. Can't wait to see him face to face. So notice again the connection with the fiery trials. But notice why it's fire. Because fire can destroy or purge and purify. Fire destroys wood, right? Straw, but it purifies gold and silver. So the fiery trials is meant to purge you of all your sin and unbelief and doubts and purify your faith, making your faith unshakable.